Have you ever been invisible in the place where you belong the most? That's exactly how Soo-Min felt every single day at Hanwoo Jewelry Group, the empire her own mother built from nothing. But Soo-Min didn't know that. She didn't know that the woman who died giving birth to her was the legendary designer Park Yeon-Hee, whose creation still hung in museums across Asia. She didn't know that the cold, intimidating chairman who watched her from his glass office had spent 15 years searching for her. All Soo-Min knew was that she was an orphan from Busan, a scholarship student who clawed her way into Seoul's most prestigious design program, and now, at 26, she was nothing more than an assistant who fetched coffee and organized files for people with half her talent. But today, everything was about to change. Soo-Min, the sharp voice of Director Kang echoed across the open-plan office, making every head turn. Are you deaf? I asked for my latte 10 minutes ago. Soo-Min set down the sketch she'd been working on during her lunch break, a delicate necklace design inspired by winter frost on window panes, and stood up quickly. I'm sorry, Director Kang. I'll get it right away. Make sure it's from the cafe across the street, not the garbage from our pantry. Miran didn't even look at her, too busy examining her manicured nails. At 34, Director Kang Miran was everything Soo-Min was not: connected, confident, and cruel. She'd gotten her position not through talent, but through her family's connections to the board, and her rumored relationship with Vice President Choi Sung-ho. Yes, Director. Soo-Min grabbed her worn cardigan and headed for the elevator. Behind her, she heard Miran's mocking voice. Honestly, I don't know why we keep her around. She's been here 2 years, and she's still just an assistant. Some people simply aren't meant to rise. The other designers laughed nervously. No one defended Soo-Min. No one ever did. What none of them noticed was the figure watching from the executive floor above, Chairman Park Yeon-Hee, his jaw tight with barely contained anger, as he observed the scene through the glass walls of his corner office. His assistant, Secretary Kim, approached quietly. Sir, should I? Not yet. Junho's voice was ice. The time isn't right. But sir, she's your... I know exactly who she is. Junho turned away from the window, his expression unreadable. That's precisely why I need to be careful. If the wrong people discover her identity before I've secured her position, they'll destroy her just like they destroyed her mother. Secretary Kim nodded slowly. He'd worked for the chairman for 20 years. He remembered the day Park Yeon-Hee died, remembered Junho's devastation when he discovered that his beloved sister's newborn daughter had vanished from the hospital. The search had consumed him for years. Private investigators, DNA databases, dead ends. And then, 18 months ago, a young woman had applied for an internship at Hanwoo Jewelry. Her portfolio had been extraordinary, raw and untrained, but with the same distinctive style that had made Park Yeon-Hee a legend. Junho had ordered a discreet DNA test using a coffee cup she'd discarded. The results had brought him to his knees. Park Soo-Min, his niece, the rightful heir to everything. But he couldn't simply hand her the company. The board was full of vipers, including Vice President Choi, who had been systematically undermining Junho's authority for years. If they knew that Yeon-Hee's daughter had returned, they would find a way to eliminate her claim. They'd done it before, when Yeon-Hee was alive. They'd driven her to exhaustion, stolen her designs, and when she died of complications after childbirth, they'd conveniently lost all records of her child. No, Soo-Min needed to prove herself first. She needed to rise on her own merit, so that when the truth emerged, no one could deny her right to lead. But watching her be humiliated day after day was testing every ounce of Junho's patience. The cafe across the street was crowded with the lunch rush, and Soo-Min had to wait 15 minutes for Director Kang's precious latte. By the time she returned, her own lunch break was over, and her stomach growled with hunger. She was hurrying through the lobby when she collided with someone, hard. Coffee exploded everywhere. For a moment, Soo-Min could only stare in horror at the dark stain spreading across the pristine white shirt of the man in front of her. Then her gaze traveled upward, past the expensive silk tie, past the sharp jawline, to the coldest pair of eyes she had ever seen. Chairman Park Yeon-Hee. The entire lobby went silent. I'm so sorry. Soo-Min dropped to her knees, frantically trying to blot the coffee from his shoes with napkins. I wasn't looking where I was going. I'll pay for the dry cleaning. Stand up. His voice was quiet, but commanding. Soo-Min froze, then slowly rose to her feet, keeping her eyes fixed on the floor. Look at me. She raised her head. Up close, the chairman was younger than she'd expected, maybe late 30s. Handsome, in a severe way. But his expression was completely unreadable. Your name? P. Park Soo-Min, sir. I'm an assistant in the design department. Something flickered in his eyes. There and gone so fast she must have imagined it. Park Soo-Min. He said her name slowly, as if tasting it. And whose coffee was this? Before she could answer, Director Kang's voice cut through the silence like a blade. Chairman Park, I'm so terribly sorry. Mi-ran rushed forward, her heels clicking frantically on the marble floor. This clumsy girl is my assistant. I assure you, I'll handle the disciplinary action personally. She'll be terminated immediately. That won't be necessary. Mi-ran blinked. Sir? The chairman's gaze hadn't left Soo-Min's face. I said, that won't be necessary. It was an accident. Unless you think your coffee run is more important than the creative work your assistant should be doing. The silence that followed was deafening. Mi-ran's face went through several shades of red before settling on a forced smile. Of course not, sir. I just meant... Director Kang. Yeon-Hee finally turned to look at her, and something in his expression made her take a step back. In the future, perhaps you could fetch your own coffee. I've heard the exercise is good for maintaining one's figure. A few poorly suppressed gasps echoed through the lobby. Mi-ran looked like she'd been slapped. Without another word, the chairman walked past them toward the elevator, not even glancing at the ruined state of his shirt. Secretary Kim appeared at Soo-Min's elbow, pressing a business card into her hand. The chairman's dry cleaning bill, he said quietly. Don't worry about it. Just keep doing your best work. Then he was gone, hurrying after his boss. Soo-Min stared at the card in her hand, completely bewildered. Director Kang's hand closed around her arm like a vice. My office. Now. Who do you think you are? Mi-ran's office door had barely closed before the screaming started. Soo-Min stood with her head bowed, enduring the tirade that had become so familiar over the past 2 years. Do you have any idea how humiliated I was? The chairman himself had to witness your incompetence, and then he... Mi-ran couldn't even finish the sentence. Her face contorted with rage. I'm sorry, Director. It was an accident. An accident? Mi-ran laughed, high and sharp. Nothing with you is an accident, is it? I've seen the way you look at the executives, always trying to catch their attention with your pathetic little sketches. Is that what you were doing? Throwing yourself at the chairman? Soo-Min's head snapped up. I would never... Don't lie to me! Mi-ran swept everything off her desk in a dramatic gesture. Papers, a coffee mug, a small jade plant. The mug shattered against the floor. I know your type. Orphan trash who thinks she can sleep her way to the top. Well, let me tell you something. The door opened. Vice President Choi Sung-ho stood in the doorway, his expression mild but his eyes sharp. At 45, he was still handsome in a polished corporate way, with silver threading through his temples and a smile that never quite reached his eyes. Mi-ran, my dear, I could hear you from the hallway. Is everything all right? Mi-ran's entire demeanor transformed. The rage vanished, replaced by a simpering sweetness that made Soo-Min's stomach turn. Sung-ho, I was just dealing with a personnel issue. Ah, yes. The coffee incident. Choi's gaze slid to Soo-Min, assessing her with a look that made her skin crawl. You're the assistant, aren't you? Park Soo-Min? Yes, sir. Interesting. He stepped closer, circling her slowly. You know, I've reviewed some of the work coming out of the design department lately. There's been some unexpected quality, designs that don't quite match the skill level of our senior designers. His eyes met hers. You wouldn't know anything about that, would you? Soo-Min's heart pounded. She knew exactly what he was talking about. For months, she'd been secretly improving designs that Director Kang submitted, fixing proportions, refining details, making them actually wearable. She'd thought no one noticed. I don't understand what you mean, sir. Choi smiled, and it was the smile of a snake about to strike. Of course you don't. Well, no matter. Miran, don't be too hard on her. We wouldn't want to lose such a dedicated employee. He left, and Miran immediately rounded on Soo-Min again. But something had changed. Where before there had been mere contempt, now there was fear in her eyes, and hatred. Get out, and don't think this is over. That night, Soo-Min sat alone in her tiny one-room apartment in the outskirts of Seoul, staring at the sketches spread across her bed. Her dinner, a single cup of instant ramyeon, had gone cold beside her. She picked up the design she'd been working on before Director Kang's coffee demand had interrupted her. The frost necklace, delicate silver chains that would drape across the collarbone like ice crystals on a window, with tiny diamonds catching the light at seemingly random intervals that were actually carefully calculated to create the illusion of natural frost patterns. It was, she knew, the best work she'd ever done, and no one would ever see it. A tear dropped onto the paper, blurring one of the diamond positions. Soo-Min wiped it away quickly, but the damage was done. Maybe they're right, she whispered to herself. Maybe I'm not meant to rise. Her phone buzzed, an unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something, call it fate or intuition, made her swipe to accept. Park Soo-Min? A woman's voice, professional and crisp. Speaking. This is Secretary Yoon from Chairwoo International. Our CEO, Mr. Lee Tae-hyun, would like to meet with you tomorrow morning regarding a potential employment opportunity. Are you available at 9 a.m.? Soo-Min's breath caught. Chairwoo International was Hanwoo Jewelry's biggest rival, a massive conglomerate that had been aggressively expanding into the luxury jewelry market for the past 3 years. Their CEO, Lee Tae-hyun, was a legend in the business world. Young, brilliant, ruthless. He'd built his empire from nothing in less than a decade. May I ask how you got my information? There was a pause. Mr. Lee has his ways. The address is 67 Gangnam-dero. Don't be late. The line went dead. Soo-Min stared at her phone, her mind racing. A job offer from Chairwoo? It seemed impossible. She was nobody, just an assistant who fetched coffee and secretly fixed other people's designs. Unless someone had noticed after all. Chairman Park Yeon-Hee sat in his home office, a glass of whiskey untouched beside him as he reviewed the day's security footage on his private tablet. He watched Soo-Min collide with him again and again, rewinding and replaying the moment their eyes met. She looked so much like Yeon-Hee. The same determined set to her jaw, the same quiet dignity even when facing humiliation, the same fire in her eyes that she tried so hard to hide. His phone rang. He glanced at the caller ID and frowned. Lee Tae-hyun, to what do I owe the displeasure? The voice on the other end was smooth, cultured, and dripping with amusement. Jun Ho-hyung, so cold. And here I thought we were family. We're not family. Your father married my aunt for 6 months before she came to her senses. Details. A laugh. I'm calling as a courtesy. I've just made a very interesting discovery about one of your employees. A Park Soo-Min, talented girl, criminally underutilized. I've invited her to interview with Chair-woo tomorrow. Junho's hand tightened on the phone. Stay away from her. Oh? Why so protective? She's just an assistant, isn't she? A pause. Unless there's something more. The name Park is quite common, of course, but I've always found coincidences so suspicious. I'm warning you, Tae-hyun. You're warning me? How charming. Here's the thing, Hyung. I've done my homework. I know exactly who she is, and I think it's only fair that someone finally tells her the truth, don't you? Before you've completely crushed her spirit. The line went dead. Junho was on his feet in an instant, already dialing Secretary Kim. The whiskey glass shattered against the wall behind him. Sir? Cancel all my meetings tomorrow. We have a situation. The next morning, Soo-Min stood outside the towering glass facade of Chair-woo International, her best interview outfit feeling suddenly shabby against the parade of designer suits flowing through the revolving doors. She'd spent all night preparing, researching the company, practicing interview questions, trying to convince herself that this wasn't some elaborate prank. By 5 a.m., she'd given up on sleep entirely and started the long subway journey from her apartment to Gangnam. Now, with 5 minutes until her appointment, she finally allowed herself to hope. Maybe this was her chance. Maybe someone had finally seen her potential. Maybe... Miss Park? A sleek black car had pulled up to the curb without her noticing. The back window rolled down, revealing a face she'd only seen in business magazines. Lee Tae-hyun, CEO of Chair-woo International. He was younger in person, maybe 32 or 33, with sharp features and an easy smile that didn't quite match the calculating intelligence in his eyes. He was, objectively, one of the most handsome men she'd ever seen. Please join me. I thought we could talk somewhere more private. Every instinct screamed at her to refuse. Getting into a stranger's car, no matter how rich or famous, was exactly the kind of thing she'd been warned against her entire life. But something in his expression, knowing, almost sympathetic, made her hesitate. What do you really want from me, Mr. Lee? His smile widened. Smart girl. I want to tell you a story about a woman named Park Yeon-Hee, who was the greatest jewelry designer Korea has ever known. About her brother, who let her die rather than defy their family's precious board of directors. And about her daughter, a daughter who was stolen from the hospital and raised in an orphanage, never knowing who she really was. Soo-Min felt the blood drain from her face. You're lying. Am I? Get in the car, Miss Park. Or should I say, Miss Park, heir to Hanwoo Jewelry Group. I think it's time someone finally told you the truth. The cafe where Tae-hyun took her was private, exclusive, and completely empty, except for the two of them. He'd reserved the entire establishment, he explained casually, because what he had to say required discretion. Soo-Min sat across from him, her hands wrapped around a cup of tea she couldn't bring herself to drink, as he laid out the evidence piece by piece. Hospital records from 26 years ago. DNA test results that matched her to Park Yeon-Hee with 9% certainty. Photos of her mother, a beautiful woman with Soo-Min's exact eyes, her exact smile, accepting design awards, posing with industry legends, laughing at some long-ago company event, and news articles, so many news articles, about Park Yeon-Hee's meteoric rise, about the jealousy of her fellow board members, about her sudden death from complications after childbirth, and the mysterious disappearance of her newborn daughter. Your mother wasn't just a designer, Tae-hyun said quietly. She was the creative soul of Hanwoo Jewelry. Every iconic piece, every design that built that company into what it is today, it all came from her. And when she died, they erased her. They credited her work to other designers. They removed her name from the company history. And they made her daughter vanish. Why? Soo-Min's voice cracked. Why would they do that? Because your mother held 45% of the company shares. If she'd lived, she would have become chairman. And if her daughter inherited those shares. Taehyun shrugged. Well, let's just say there were people who stood to lose everything. But Chairman Park, he would be my uncle. She couldn't bring herself to say the word. He's been there this whole time. He knows who I am, doesn't he? He's always known. Taehyun's expression flickered with something that might have been genuine sympathy. He's known for 18 months. He discovered you when you applied for the internship. He's been protecting you ever since, if you can call letting you be humiliated and abused protection. He defended me yesterday. After 2 years of doing nothing, after watching you fetch coffee and clean up after people who aren't fit to sharpen your pencils. Taehyun leaned forward. He's been waiting, Soo-Min, waiting for the right moment to reveal the truth. But that moment never seems to come, does it? Because the truth is, Park Yeon-Hee isn't protecting you. He's protecting his position. As long as you're just an assistant, you're no threat to anyone. But the moment the world knows you're Park Yeon-Hee's daughter, everything changes. Soo-Min closed her eyes, her mind reeling. It couldn't be true. It was too much, too big, too overwhelming. But in her heart she knew it made a terrible kind of sense. The way the chairman looked at her sometimes. The way certain executives seemed inexplicably nervous in her presence. The way her designs always seemed to catch someone's attention, only for that attention to be quickly suppressed. She'd thought she was imagining things. She'd thought she was paranoid. "What do you want from me?" she asked finally. Taehyun sat back, his expression unreadable. "I want to offer you a choice. You can go back to Hanwoo, keep being an assistant, keep waiting for your uncle to finally decide you're worthy of the truth. Or you can come to Chairwoo. I'll make you lead designer immediately. I'll give you your own team, your own studio, complete creative freedom. And in exchange..." In exchange? His smile returned, sharp and predatory. "In exchange, you help me destroy the people who killed your mother. The board members who covered up her death, the executives who stole her legacy, and yes, your uncle who stood by and let it all happen." Soo-Min stared at him. "You don't want me for my designs. You want to use me as a weapon. I want justice for a woman who deserved better. And I want to watch the people who wronged her burn." He shrugged. "If you prefer to think of it as using you, that's your prerogative. But consider this. Isn't it also using you to keep you ignorant of your own identity? Isn't it using you to make you grovel at the feet of people who stole everything from your mother?" He stood, leaving a folder on the table. "Take the day, read everything I've given you, and then make your choice. My offer stands until midnight." He walked away, leaving Soo-Min alone with the ruins of everything she thought she knew about herself. Chairman Park Yeon-Hee arrived at Chairwoo International 30 minutes after Soo-Min entered the building, only to be informed that CEO Lee had taken his guest to an undisclosed location. He spent the next 4 hours trying every contact, calling in every favor, activating every surveillance resource at his disposal. By the time his people finally tracked her to the private cafe, she was already gone. She wasn't at her apartment. She wasn't at Hanwoo. She wasn't answering her phone. It was Secretary Kim who finally found her, at dusk, sitting alone on a bench in Olympic Park, staring at the folder in her lap. Yeon-Hee approached slowly, feeling something he hadn't felt in decades. Fear. "Soo-Min." She didn't look up. "When were you going to tell me?" He sat down beside her, keeping a careful distance between them. "I was trying to protect you." A bitter laugh escaped her. "Everyone keeps saying that. My uncle, trying to protect me by letting me suffer. Lee Tae-hyun, trying to protect my mother's memory by turning me into an instrument of revenge." She finally looked at him, and the grief in her eyes hit him like a physical blow. Did you know they found her body with bruises? That she didn't just die from complications? She was struggling, fighting, trying to get to me when they took me away. Junho closed his eyes. I suspected, but I could never prove it. You suspected. For 26 years you suspected, and you did nothing. That's not true. His voice broke. I've spent every day since she died trying to bring down the people responsible. But they were too powerful, too entrenched. Every time I got close, they found a way to destroy the evidence, discredit the witnesses. And when I finally found you, he took a shaky breath. I couldn't risk them finding you too. I couldn't let them do to you what they did to her. So you let me be humiliated instead. You let me think I was worthless. I was wrong. The admission tore out of him. I was so focused on protecting you that I forgot what you really needed. What Yeon-Hee would have wanted for you. I'm sorry, Soo-Min. I'm so sorry. They sat in silence as the park lights flickered on around them. Lee Tae-hyun wants me to destroy you, Soo-Min said finally. He says you stood by while my mother died, that you're no better than the rest of them. And what do you believe? She was quiet for a long moment. I believe that my mother was murdered. I believe that the people who did it are still at Hanwoo, still profiting from her death. And I believe that hiding and waiting hasn't worked for 26 years. She turned to face him fully. I'm not going to Chair-woo. I'm not letting anyone use me as a weapon. But I'm also not going to keep being invisible. She pulled a sketch from the folder, her frost necklace design, somehow included among the documents Tae-hyun had provided. She didn't ask how he'd gotten it. My mother built Hanwoo with her designs. I'm going to reclaim it the same way. I'm going to prove to everyone exactly who I am. Not because you reveal it, not because Tae-hyun exposes it, but because my work speaks for itself. Her jaw set with determination. And when the truth comes out, I want it to be because I earned my place, not because I was handed it. Junho looked at his niece, really looked at her, for the first time. The girl he'd been trying to protect was gone. In her place was a woman with her mother's fire in her eyes. What do you need from me? A chance. A real chance. Enter my designs in the Hanwoo Luminary competition. Let me compete against the senior designers on equal ground. If I win, I want a promotion. Real responsibilities, not coffee runs. And I want access to my mother's archives. Her original sketches, her notes, everything they tried to bury. The board will fight it, then fight back. Soo-Min stood, tucking the folder under her arm. You've been waiting for the right moment for 18 months. The right moment is now. Are you with me or not? For the first time in longer than he could remember, Junho smiled. I'm with you. I always was. If you're rooting for Soo-Min as much as I am, please subscribe to the channel. Now, let's see what happens next. 3 weeks later, the Hanwoo Luminary competition began. The annual event was the company's most prestigious internal showcase, a chance for designers to present original collections to a panel of industry judges, with the winner receiving a substantial bonus and a guaranteed promotion. Historically, it had been dominated by senior designers with decades of experience and extensive resources. This year, for the first time, an assistant had been entered. The whispers started the moment the competitor list was posted. Is this a joke? Park Soo-Min? Didn't she just fetch coffee last week? I heard the chairman personally approved her entry. Do you think they're... Director Kang stood before the announcement board, her face pale with fury. She'd spent weeks preparing her collection. Elegant, traditional pieces that would appeal to the conservative judges. She'd been certain of victory. And now some nobody was being allowed to compete against her? This is unacceptable, she hissed to Vice President Choi, who had appeared silently at her shoulder. The competition has standards, requirements. She doesn't have the experience. She has the chairman's favor, Choi interrupted smoothly, which, at the moment, is worth more than experience. His eyes narrowed, but favors can be withdrawn, especially if certain information were to come to light. Miran turned to him, hope flickering in her eyes. What kind of information? Choi smiled his reptilian smile. Let's just say that our little assistant may have a secret, one that, if exposed at the right moment, could discredit her entirely. He leaned closer. All I need from you is a small favor. Access to the secure design vault, just for one night. The vault? But that's where the archive designs are kept. Yes, including certain pieces that have been misattributed over the years. His smile widened. Don't worry about the details, my dear. Just get me access, and I promise you, Park Soo-Min won't be a problem much longer. Miran hesitated only a moment before nodding. She never noticed the young woman who had paused just around the corner, close enough to hear every word. Soo-Min pressed herself against the wall, her heart pounding. The vault. They were going to do something with the vault, with her mother's archived designs. She had to warn her uncle. She had to. A hand closed over her arm, making her gasp. Easy. Lee Tae-hyun's voice was barely a whisper. It's just me. Follow me, quickly. How are you even here? I have my ways. He pulled her into an empty conference room and shut the door. I've been keeping tabs on Choi and Kang. They're planning something for the night before the competition. Something big. I heard. The vault. They're going to plant evidence. Original designs that will prove your mother stole her most famous pieces from other designers. They've been planning this for years in case her heir ever surfaced. Taehyun's expression was grim. If they succeed, it won't matter how talented you are. Your entire claim to Hanwoo will be based on your mother's legacy. Destroy that legacy, and they destroy you. Soo-Min felt sick. We have to stop them. We will. But we need to be smart about it. He pulled out his phone, showing her a building schematic. The vault has 3 access points. Choi will expect you to try to catch him in the act, so you won't go anywhere near it. Instead, you'll be somewhere very public, with lots of witnesses, establishing an alibi. While I have my people document everything they do, every forgery, every planted document, every word they say. His eyes glittered. And then, at the competition, when they think they've won, we expose them in front of everyone who matters. Soo-Min studied him carefully. Why are you helping me? What do you get out of this? I told you before. I want justice for your mother. That's not the whole truth. Tae-hyun was silent for a long moment. Then, surprisingly, he looked away. Your mother was kind to me once, when I was nothing, just a teenager with a dead father and a step-family that hated me. She found me crying behind the Hanwoo building after a particularly bad day, and she sat with me. She told me that the people who hurt us don't define us, that the best revenge is becoming someone they can't ignore. He smiled, but there was pain in it. She was the only person who ever believed I could be more than my circumstances. When she died, I swore I would make the people responsible pay. And my uncle? Your uncle failed her, but... Tae-hyun hesitated. I don't think he's the enemy you should be fighting. Not anymore. Save your energy for the real villains. Soo-Min absorbed this, turning over the pieces in her mind. Then she nodded slowly. All right, what's the plan? The night before the competition, Soo-Min attended a charity gala hosted by the Seoul Fashion Association. She wore a simple black dress, the nicest thing in her limited wardrobe, and spent the evening in highly visible conversations with industry figures, making sure dozens of witnesses could confirm exactly where she was and what she was doing. Meanwhile, across the city, Vice President Choi and Director Kang entered the Hanwoo design vault using Miran's access codes. They didn't notice the tiny cameras that had been placed throughout the room the previous day. They didn't notice the listening devices hidden in the light fixtures. They didn't notice the team of investigators documenting their every move from a surveillance van parked outside. What they did notice, several hours later, was that the vault's security system had been remotely activated, locking them inside. Chairman Park Yeon-Hee walked in at midnight, flanked by company security and a police detective who had been investigating corporate corruption for 3 years. Vice President Choi, Director Kang. His voice was ice. I believe you have some explaining to do. The Hanwoo Luminary competition took place the following afternoon in the company's grand exhibition hall. The room was packed, not just with employees, but with industry press, potential clients, and even a few rival company representatives. Word had spread that something extraordinary was about to happen, though no one knew quite what. The remaining competitors presented their collections one by one. The designs were competent, some even beautiful, but there was a nervous energy in the room that had nothing to do with jewelry. Finally, Soo-Min's name was called. She walked to the presentation stage on trembling legs, carrying a velvet-covered display case. The whispers intensified around her. Ladies and gentlemen, she began, her voice steady despite her hammering heart. Before I present my collection, I need to tell you a story. She removed the velvet cover, revealing 6 pieces of extraordinary jewelry. The frost necklace, a pair of earrings like frozen teardrops, a bracelet of interlocking ice crystals, a ring with a diamond that seemed to glow from within, a hairpin that could have been crafted from actual winter, and a brooch in the shape of a perfect snowflake. The audience gasped. 26 years ago, a woman named Park Yeon-Hee created the Winter's Heart collection, 6 pieces that revolutionized jewelry design and established Hanwoo as a world-class brand. But her name was erased from company records. Her designs were credited to others, and her daughter, her only child, was stolen from the hospital and raised in an orphanage, never knowing who she really was. The whispers became a roar. Soo-Min raised her voice above them. I know all of this because I am that daughter. My name is Park Soo-Min, and I am the heir to Park Yeon-Hee's legacy. Chaos erupted. Reporters shouted questions. Employees turned to each other in shock. Somewhere in the crowd, Soo-Min heard someone screaming denials. Probably one of Choi's allies who hadn't been arrested yet. But she wasn't finished. Last night, Vice President Choi Sung-ho and Director Kang Mi-ran attempted to plant forged documents in the company vault. Documents designed to discredit my mother and destroy my claim to her legacy. They were caught on camera. They are currently in police custody. She let that sink in before continuing. The pieces you see before you are my own designs, inspired by my mother's work, but entirely original. I created them to prove that I am worthy of her legacy, not because of blood, but because of ability. I am entering them in this competition not to win by sympathy, but to be judged on merit alongside my colleagues. She stepped back from the display case. That is all. The applause started slowly, a single pair of hands near the back of the room, then another, and another. Within seconds, the entire hall was on its feet, clapping and cheering as Soo-Min stood with tears streaming down her face. In the front row, Chairman Park Yeon-Hee wiped his eyes and smiled. Soo-Min won the competition unanimously, but that was only the beginning. Over the following months, the full scope of the conspiracy against Park Yeon-Hee was exposed. Police investigations revealed that Vice President Choi had been systematically embezzling from the company for over a decade, using the profits to bribe board members and suppress any investigation into Yeon-Hee's death. Director Kang, it turned out, had been Choi's protege for years. Her position at Hanwoo was a reward for helping him steal and misattribute Yeon-Hee's designs. One by one, the conspirators fell. 3 board members were arrested for fraud and obstruction of justice. 2 senior executives resigned in disgrace. Director Kang Mi-ran, facing multiple criminal charges, attempted to flee the country and was caught at Incheon airport, crying and screaming that it wasn't fair, that she'd only been following orders. Choi Sung-ho, facing a lifetime in prison, made one final desperate move. He contacted Lee Tae-hyun with an offer to testify against everyone, including Chairman Park, in exchange for a reduced sentence. Tae-hyun recorded the entire conversation and turned it over to the police. "He thought I wanted to destroy your uncle," Tae-hyun explained when he met with Soo-Min to give her the recording. "He never understood that what I really wanted was justice, and that sometimes justice means protecting the people who deserve protection." Soo-Min studied him carefully. "You've changed. Have I?" He smiled, and for once it reached his eyes. "Maybe I just finally stopped letting the people who hurt me define who I am. Someone very wise told me that once. The best revenge is becoming someone they can't ignore." He turned to leave, then paused at the door. "For what it's worth, your mother would be proud of you." 6 months after the competition, Park Soo-min was named creative director of Hanwoo Jewelry Group. The announcement was made at a press conference that drew international media attention. Fashion magazines devoted cover stories to her rise. Business journals analyzed the implications for the luxury goods market. And ordinary people who had struggled and suffered and wondered if they would ever be seen, found hope in her story. But for Soo-min, the most meaningful moment came later that evening. She stood alone in her mother's studio, a room that had been sealed for 26 years and was finally being restored. Dust motes danced in the evening light as she ran her fingers over Yeon-Hee's original sketches, her untouched tools, the half-finished design she'd been working on when she died. "I found your daughter." Soo-min turned. Chairman Park, Uncle Jun-ho, stood in the doorway, his expression gentle. "I should have told you from the beginning," he continued. "I should have trusted you to handle the truth. I was so afraid of losing you that I almost lost you anyway. You didn't lose me." Soo-min crossed the room and, for the first time, embraced her uncle. "You kept her memory alive long enough for me to find it. That's what matters." Jun-ho held her tightly, his shoulders shaking with quiet sobs. "She would be so proud of you. So proud." They stood together in Yeon-Hee's studio as the sun set over Seoul, uncle and niece, finally reunited after 26 years. And somewhere Soo-min was certain, her mother was smiling. 1 year later. The Hanwoo Winter Gala was the most anticipated event of the fashion calendar. Soo-min descended the grand staircase in a gown of her own design, ivory silk that flowed like snowdrifts, adorned with pieces from her newest collection. At the bottom of the stairs, 300 of the industry's most influential figures had gathered to celebrate Hanwoo's most successful year in history. "Miss Park," a reporter pushed forward with a microphone. "Can you comment on the news that Chairwoo International has proposed a partnership with Hanwoo?" Soo-min smiled. "Mr. Lee and I have had very productive discussions. I think you'll find the announcement tomorrow." Surprising. She moved through the crowd with grace, accepting congratulations and business cards, her transformation from invisible assistant to industry powerhouse complete. Near the bar, she spotted a familiar face, one that made her freeze mid-step. Kang Mi-ran. The former director had been released from prison 3 months ago, having served a reduced sentence in exchange for testimony against Choi. She looked diminished somehow, her designer dress slightly out of fashion, her makeup not quite covering the lines of stress around her eyes. For a long moment, the two women stared at each other. Mi-ran broke first. She walked over on unsteady heels, her eyes fixed on the floor. "I don't expect forgiveness," she said quietly. "I know what I did was unforgivable, but I wanted you to know. I'm sorry. Not just because I got caught, because I was wrong. About you. About everything." Soo-min studied her former tormentor, the woman who had humiliated her daily, who had stolen credit for her work, who had conspired to destroy her mother's legacy. The best revenge, Soo-Min said slowly, is becoming someone they can't ignore. Miran flinched. I could destroy you right now. Soo-Min's voice was calm, almost gentle. One word from me, and you'd never work in this industry again. Every door would close. Every opportunity would vanish. I could make you invisible, the way you tried to make me. Miran's face crumpled. I know. But that's not who I am. That's not who my mother raised me to be. Soo-Min reached into her clutch and pulled out a business card. There's a junior position open in our new training program. Entry level. You'd have to earn your way up from the bottom. But if you're willing to work, really work, it's yours. Miran stared at the card like it might bite her. Why? After everything I did. Because everyone deserves a second chance. Soo-Min pressed the card into her hand. My mother believed that. I believe it too. She walked away without looking back. Behind her, Kang Miran clutched the business card and for the first time in years allowed herself to cry. The gala continued late into the night. At midnight, Soo-Min slipped away from the celebration and made her way to the rooftop terrace. The city stretched out below her, a sea of lights against the winter sky. You're missing your own party. She turned to find Lee Tae-hyun leaning against the railing, 2 champagne flutes in hand. I needed a minute. She accepted the glass he offered. It's a lot to take in. The partnership announcement? All of it. 1 year ago, I was fetching coffee and dreaming about designs I thought no one would ever see. Now, she gestured at the glittering skyline. Now I don't even know who I am sometimes. Tae-hyun moved to stand beside her. You're Park Soo-Min, creative director of Hanwoo Jewelry, daughter of a legend. A pretty good designer in your own right, if the reviews are to be believed. High praise from my competitor. Soon to be partner. He clinked his glass against hers. To new beginnings. They drank in comfortable silence. Below them, the city hummed with life. Millions of people with their own dreams, their own struggles, their own stories yet to be written. What happens now? Soo-Min asked. Now? Tae-hyun smiled. Now you keep designing, keep building, keep proving that the best revenge really is becoming someone they can't ignore. And you? I'll be right here, supporting, competing, occasionally trying to steal your best employees. His eyes sparkled with humor. It's going to be a very interesting partnership. Soo-Min laughed, a genuine, joyful sound that she barely recognized as her own. A year ago, she couldn't have imagined laughing like this. Couldn't have imagined standing on top of the world with anything resembling hope. But here she was, alive, thriving. Finally, truly seen. Thank you, she said softly, for telling me the truth when no one else would. Tae-hyun's expression softened. Thank your mother. She's the one who taught me that the truth, however painful, is always better than a comfortable lie. They stood together on the rooftop as snow began to fall. Soft white flakes that caught the light like diamonds, like frost on a window pane, like all the dreams that Soo-Min had finally learned to believe in. And somewhere in her heart, she knew her mother was watching, smiling, proud.